Welcome to your weekly astrological weather. This is your place to get practical guidance for not only surviving, but thriving with the cosmic tides. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. We are so happy to be here with all of you. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you to Nura Rachelle, who is our guest astrologer this week. So excited to have you here, Nura. Nura is going to be our inner circle astrologer for our Leo month in August. Well, I guess July and August. And so we're looking forward to that, but we wanted to tune in with Nura now and get her read on the weekly weather. So welcome. We're so happy to have you back.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited for just all to come. I just love this community so much.
So if you are interested in learning more about Nura, you can go to podcast episode 396, hear about her story, how she became an astrologer, and just get a little bit more of her perspective on astrology. But Nura, let's start with the week ahead and start with the big picture theme. So what are you seeing as the theme for the week?
So we are really held in this container of the Sun conjunct Jupiter at the beginning of the week, and then Sun conjunct Neptune at the end of the week. So it is pure Pisces, pure this cosmic soup, really dancing with the duality between confusion and clarity. And it's just this multiplicity energy. It's literally everything. We're just being confronted with everything, and it's from within as much as it is from without. And it's very much, I think, a time of massive endings coinciding with massive new beginnings all at once.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God, just out the gate. Like, wow.
Yep.
So massive endings, massive beginnings, everything. Like what? So why are you saying this? The Sun conjunct Jupiter at the beginning of the week, the Sun conjunct Neptune at the end of the week. Tell us, like, interpret those energies specifically.
Yeah. So the Sun with Jupiter makes everything bigger. And Jupiter is also one of the rulers of Pisces. So we have both planetary rulers of Pisces really holding us in this space, and having this expansive energy of the Jupiter with the Sun. It's almost like a new phase conjunction. It's a new cycle beginning with Sun and Jupiter, and it's going to happen once per year, depending on the sign. And right now, Jupiter's in his own sign, in one of his own signs. And very much this, it almost feels like similar to how this new moon energy is. It's like we go into a phase of darkness. We go into a phase of like, we're not quite sure what's going to happen. We're not quite sure how we're going to feel about it all. It's a lot of this germination. And then if we think of the themes of Jupiter being our higher self aspirations, how we connect to our goals and what it is that we want to create more of, but it's the mystical energy of Pisces, where a really big part of the recipe is faith. It's like you're not given all of the instructions. You're not given all of you don't even know what the ingredients are going to be. So there's this really big energy of like, okay, we're in something new, but we're not sure what this means, but we have to keep going. It's like there's this inner compulsion to keep moving. And I think depending on your relationship with Pisces, you'll feel either like, yeah, I'm in, I love the way it feels, right? And I love to just follow the flow and just see where it leads me. And then the others who are maybe a little bit more, analytically minded, or like require proof or evidence, something measurable and tangible, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So everybody kind of has their own relationship with this energy, but I like to stay on the side of possibility. And I think that everybody can, if we allow it, we can expand ourselves and open up into this big question that Jupiter Sun is really opening this week with, like, what else is possible?
Gosh, that is Nora, I'm thinking of my daughter who is there in their little homeschool community. They're doing a block on Roman history. And one of her assignments was to tell me some of the stories of the Roman times. And of course, it's war and power struggles and betrayal and all these things. And as she was speaking, I was like, are we tired of this story yet? Like, this story is so boring. We keep rehashing. You could have literally swapped out the names, Marius and Bacchus, all the different names, and swapped them for current leaders, current events, and it would be the same story. It's like, what else is possible? What else can we create at this time? Because I don't think it's old, it's bored, it's tired, it's time for something new. And that feels like what you're talking about. Like, what else is possible? We know what we've been doing. We know what has been done, but what else can we create at this point?
Absolutely. And I think there's this requirement for allowing ourselves to step out of our comfort zone, which we know is a long-term energy with this North Node in Taurus. It's like the expansion of our comfort zone. And as our comfort zone expands, our bandwidth to live on the edge of discomfort expands too. And we're like, oh, okay, so what I thought was scary is not as scary because I've already confronted that whole North Node Taurus, South Node Scorpio. Like, that's really the underpinnings of, I think, the emotional tone of everything at this time. And then you put on top of that the Sun, Jupiter, what else is possible? And then the Sun, Neptune at the end of the week, we're going to dissolve everything that is fantasy, illusion, anything that is clouding our structure of reality with, the Saturn in Aquarius and the right now the Mercury in Aquarius, which just last week had the square to the nodes. So, or right at the beginning of this week. So that's March 6th. So a lot of this, we know we're witnessing a dismantling of an old structure of reality. And it really requires us to be in that sort of playful energy. And sometimes it's really difficult to be playful when we're also witnessing strife and grief and suffering. And yeah, like, there's a lot of really difficult things going on. And that's what I also think that the everythingness is in that Pisces energy, because it just shows us, like, this is the human condition. Human life is both like, oh, we're going to have this beautiful art, creativity over here, and having the innocence and the sweet beauty of like a child's school project on one side of this spectrum, and then over here people are getting bombed, and then people are dying, and then there's mass illness and mass suffering. Like, that is Pisces. Like, how can we hold the space for, there's so much beauty, and then there's destruction, pain, suffering, and not let us get too wrapped up in one side of it. That's been, I think, a lesson that we've all been sort of working through, is like, how can we stay open when it is so difficult sometimes to stay open, when we're like, okay, there's so much going on in the world. I almost have to put up a boundary and say no to all of these things over here, because that's confusing, or because that's too big, or it's too much for me to think about. That's sometimes, I think, a little bit what we're experiencing, especially in just the global energy that we've been working with for the past couple years. And I think the opportunity in this Pisces season, with the Sun, Jupiter Pisces, and the Sun, Neptune in Pisces, we get to allow ourselves to feel our feelings, first of all, and then see, can we allow ourselves to get just to that edge, that comfortable discomfort? Like, we talk about it all the time in yoga, right? Like, you're doing a stretch. You want it to kind of get to the point where you're feeling a sensation, because then you're actually interacting with the place that is transformative, the energy that's going to bring a change. doesn't always feel great, but then there's tools to get through it. Like we can take a deeper breath, right? We can talk to somebody. We can put on our solfeggio frequencies, right? That's been my strategy. I'm like, how can I just hear beautiful things and transmute and not get bogged down by things that are very, very heavy? And then how can I use my voice to pray? How can I use what's natural and innate for me and not get, sort of swept up? I always like to see the Pisces energy as learning how to surf. It's like the waves are coming. No matter what you do, the waves are coming, and you can be on that board and you can make it fun. And it's not taking away from the fact that there's waves crashing on the shore, right? It's just like we're doing what we can to be in as much of an enjoyable flow with the process as we can. So there's a lot here. And I think it just speaks to the fact that everybody's having such a different experience. And wherever we are in our journey, it's like, just focus on how we can make the most of it in ourselves. And that I think comes down to belief, but something that I really believe is each one of us is here to create something. And when we're in trust with our own creative process, which I think is very much available right now, we will inevitably make the world a more beautiful, high vibing place for everybody around us, even if it's not, we're going to create something that is unique to us and somebody else might not fully understand it or agree with it, but it's almost besides the point. There's a really good book by Paul Levy called Dispelling Wetiko. Have you heard of it?
Yes, just recently. I mean, I've known the concept of Wetiko for a long time, but I just heard of that book in particular, like last week.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's so potent for our times.
Well, let's talk about it because people might not know what Wetiko is.
Like the core premise, at least that I took from it, was that there's a creative spark within all of us, but evil comes from the repression or the suppression of that creative spark. And so our work then becomes, healing the trauma that's in the way of that creative spark, doing the ancestral healing, which I think the South Node in Scorpio will really lend support to. And same with the Pisces, right? Like, can we accept that there have been horrors? Can we just accept it for what it is? Not meaning we love it, not meaning we condone it or that we wish it would continue, but can we accept what's going on so that we can look at it through the lens of reality, like this is what's happening. And then from that place, okay, now we are aware of, oh, over here, we could put our attention, we can put our energy, we can put our resources, because over here, there's healing required. And then over here, oh, these people are, leaders and they're really on fire and they're inspiring people to be in their creative genius. So it's kind of like being a teacher almost. Like, I really think of Jupiter, Neptune, Pisces, it's kind of the like wise, transcendent teacher who can look in a room and notice like all the different students have something totally different going on, but is able to almost help them in all of their unique roles. It's like ultimate differentiation. If you know anything about the classroom, and it's like you have to be able to teach to 30, sometimes more kids and give something to everybody in a way that they can use it. Like, that's Pisces. And so we're all going to be witnessing that in our own life, and perhaps feel into, oh, there's a lot in me right now, and I have a choice of what to do with it. And there's no wrong thing to do with it. Like, maybe that thing that I need to do is feel my feelings. Maybe what I need to do is write a poem. Maybe what I need to do is remember to dance and like shake it out, and maybe I just get to be still and do nothing, but I'm doing it on purpose. And I'm doing it with the awareness that right now the wave just wants to roll, and it's going to roll. It's like that acceptance.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of surfing, the worst thing to do is to brace yourself against, to stiffen and brace yourself against the wave. That's the surefire way to get toppled over and brought into the whitewash, right? So it's remaining loose enough to be able to move with that current is essential, but strong. It's not like loosey goosey, just, letting everything go. There's still a alertness in the posture, but being stiff and, bracing against you're definitely going to get hurt that way.
Absolutely. And I feel like this alludes to the strategy that's also inherent in this time, because so where we are just in the moon phase, which I think is also important. So we recently had a new moon last week, and then so we're still feeling that, like we're still in a germinal energy. But then coming into the first quarter moon, which is March 10th, we have a first quarter moon at 19 degrees Gemini. And that feels very much like mental strategy. Like, what am I going to communicate about? Perhaps what spells am I going to cast? What affirmations am I going to use? What are going to be my mantras? What's going to be my homing statement? Like, what am I going to tell myself when things are starting to feel really big? And so this can be a really good time to sort of develop a mantra for yourself in that way. Something for me that I've been repeating a lot is the Sufi wisdom reminder that what is essential can never be lost. And I just keep repeating that to myself and noticing the thoughts that come up, because my mind can challenge that too. Like my mind will challenge that, thousands year old Sufi wisdom. It'll be like, but like people die,
People lose things.
Yeah,
like, right. Yes.
and like it's really hard. So who do I have to become in order to believe that statement? And then witnessing what starts to shift in my personal experience, because there's so much going on the outside that I can't control, but I can control what's here, and then I can control my reactions to what's going on. And so it requires me to be in this energy of trust and faith, and sort of this belief that in the end all will be known. Like everything is always in divine order, even if I don't understand it. It doesn't mean I'm also always going to like it, but for me, it's sort of it's like my ground floor, because if I don't live from that place up, it gets really, really hard. I'm also a very highly sensitive person. I'm highly empathic. I feel all the things, right? And so for the people who are highly sensitive people, highly empathic, with the South Node in Scorpio and this Pisces season, I imagine you're feeling all the feelings. So it's like, get to the place of the strategy right now is, what are the beliefs that are going to keep you grounded? What are the affirmations that are going to keep you grounded? Because you're needed, right? Like your piece is needed in a world that's spiraling, right?
You're needed in a world that's spiraling.
Yeah.
Last week with Stormy, we talked about, when there's people drowning in the ocean or in the pool, there needs to be some lifeguards on duty. There needs to be some people who aren't in that experience, who are actually holding people and helping, in all the different ways that we can do that. Like you said, for some people, it might be praying. For some people, it might be actually boots on the ground and doing something, physically with your body. For some people, it might be meditating and staying in that dream space and imagining the possibilities of what can come out of this time, knowing that where we've been is old, and there just is something new that needs to come in, and we have to make space for that. So many different ways that we can do this. And when you said this, who do I have to become to believe that what is essential can never be lost? I kept thinking of how in order to really believe that, you have to be rooted in something very different than this transient world. You have to be rooted in the eternal nature of life and of the soul. And anywhere else, if you're not rooted there, anywhere else, that statement actually doesn't make sense and isn't true.
Yes, there's a lot of ways to talk yourself out of that statement.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So what would you say? So we have the moon phase, which, tell us a little bit more about how that's influencing what you're saying.
So whenever we're working with the new moon energy, which I believe we are working with that in a very compound way, actually, with all of these conjunctions. with the sun. So sun and Jupiter is like a new phase conjunction, then the sun and Neptune new phase conjunction. And so it's like the ending of something with the beginning of something. It's the same with a new moon, right? Like the sun and moon coming together. It's dark, it's germinal. It might seem like it's, you know, quiet and empty and there's nothing happening, but actually so much is happening. It's like the womb space where everything required for life is happening. So it's actually an immensely important phase. So we can kind of witness the mirroring of that with every new moon, but then also with every planetary pair conjunction. So we're really working with this new phase. It's almost like a dark goddess energy. It's the dark goddess that a lot of times we can be very afraid of if we don't understand, like, you know, the Kali or the Hecate, like the crone wisdom at the end of a cycle. And then also like what is happening under the surface, almost similar to, you know, a caterpillar going into a chrysalis before becoming a butterfly. Like we know these things and we can hear them multiple times in our mind, but when we're feeling it viscerally and actually experiencing it in ourselves, we're like, what is this? Like, I don't know who I am in this moment. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I don't know what I'm planning for my life in next 10 years because the whole structure of my reality is different. Like, those are scary places to be. And that I think is the realm of the dark goddess, because in that place, it's like, we're being challenged. We have to be, like I was saying before, we have to be in such immense faith, rooted to something eternal. This is very much that Pisces possibility. It's like, are you going to accept the challenge? It's a spiritual initiation. It can be a spiritual initiation. And when we come into the first quarter moon, this is where we start to see, you know, half of the light is available in the cycle. So this is kind of, you know, talking about the sun and moon relationship where we have this first quarter moon in Gemini, March 10th, midweek. This is where I think we're going to have half of the information around in this very, you know, this measurable cycle of time, this month-long cycle. Okay, I'm going to start to understand a little bit more about, well, what is it that I can do right now? Like I might not know still what my 5-year plan is. And I probably, you know, even if I made a 5-year plan, would it come to pass exactly in the way that I hoped it would, right? So I really like kind of taking and comparing these really big planetary placement energies, like the sun Neptune and the sun Jupiter, similar to a new moon. It's like those are big cycles. They're going to unfold over a year and years. But this moon cycle, it's like over the next 28, 29 days. And I can then sort of tether myself to, okay, within this like micro rotation, within the bigger rotations, okay, there's something that's going to come through. I'm going to know something that I don't know now in a week. And that to me is, I think, what keeps me tethered to astrology in general, because I am a, you know, a human with an ego and a mind. I need a tether when I'm not always 100% able to stay in my, you know, big broad brushstroke faith. Like I like to give my mind something to look forward to, and also a strategy. It's like the first quarter moon in Gemini. It's like, use the gift and the strategy of your words. It's going to help you emotionally. And it'll start to make sense. So even if you do something like journal prompting around this question, the simple question of who am I becoming while the world is going through a rebirth cycle, that means nobody's exempt, right? We're all going through this rebirth cycle together. And so journaling on, you know, who am I becoming, and what can be my strategy to be the best version of myself that I can be in this time? Like, how can I be the leader of my own life? Or, you know, Gemini themes, how can I be a student of this moment rather than feeling like I need to know everything? That's also very much an invitation to stay in that beginner's mind, because in that place, there's a lot of innocence. And I think what we've witnessed a lot is the battle between the experts, right? Very polarized experts. And then is very much the opportunity of like, okay, what's my personal lived experience? How can I trust that to make my decisions? And just how can I use what's right in front of me?
Okay. I'm writing all these questions down that you're posing, because these are really powerful questions. And when we hold these questions with an open mind and a receptivity for the answers that could surprise us, which is actually even more exciting than knowing who we're going to be in 5 years. It's
Oh
like,
my gosh, yes.
I don't know who I'm going to be in 5 years. And that's exciting. Like, who could I become? Because in that place of darkness and unknown and the lack of logic, all the places that have seemed scary, right? And all the places that have been very suppressed as the more feminine expression, right? The less tangible, the less controllable, the less understandable, but also the most magical and the most potent and the most surprising and the most potentially delightful. All those things coexist at the same time. And it's what you said in the very beginning. It's holding all of that. I mean, it's holding all of that at the same time, which feels really challenging, but also awesome. And then I'm back to your yoga pose where you're at that edge, and you don't want to go so far that it hurts, but you want to go to that place where you are being expanded. And that is where we're at, right? Like, as humanity, doesn't it feel like that? We're just, whoa, like, okay, I didn't think I could handle that, but I can. And whoa, like, I never thought this would happen, but it is. And oh, I never thought that I would even have these kinds of thoughts, but I am. It's all this expansion happening all at once. And then, yes, having to hold all that.
Totally. And I think it's very linked to anybody who's ever gone through a birthing process, like the moment where you think you're going to die and then you don't die. Right? Like I experienced that. I was like, I'm not able to do this. How is this even possible? This is,
and
going
that's when
to
the
happen
midwives
right
and the
now.
doulas are celebrating, because they know when you're saying I'm going to die, that they know that the baby's about to come.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly what's happening. So it's like, you're not going to die. And yes, we're close.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's the collective energy. So in a way, a lot of people have asked me, how can I maintain optimism? And I think exactly what you just said. It's that, like, I think there's a big part of me who has like doula midwife energy, but of the spirit. It's like when I see people up against the wall and they're like, I have no other place to go other than to do my deepest healing, other than to do my deepest shadow work, other than to love myself more than I've ever loved before, I get excited. And I think I have that. I think in a lot of ways, I embody some of that dark goddess energy that says, you know, you're not here to just play nice and be in a small box and be this small version of yourself that's safe. It's like, rise up. Like, do you even know what you're capable of? Do you even know? You don't know yet, right? And like, be okay with it. It's like, you don't even know yet who you get to become. And it's probably going to blow your mind. And I love that. I love being a witness to that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, me too. Nora, I've actually been delighting in that now more than ever. When I see someone really in their purest expression, and that their light shining so brightly and unapologetically, it is like the most blissful thing to even just witness, to just see. And that, I feel like that's where we're going.
Yeah.
That's where we're going, where each one of us is in that deepest, purest, most surprising expression. And it's changing all the time. Moment to moment, it can express itself in different ways. And that can seem really ungrounded, what I just said. How would we get anything done? And how would we, but that's where the trust comes in, that trusting in the design. And so much in astrology is trusting the design that is you, and trusting the design that all of us have. I personally think that when we're all in that pure design, that is when there is this symphony on earth that is just, I mean, all of nature is singing, and it is already singing. We're just sort of like not tuned in with it right now as humans.
Yeah.
So it's really just joining the orchestra of nature.
Oh, I love that so much. It gives me so many visions. Speaking of visions, like, this is very powerful dream time. Very, very powerful. I don't know about you, but I have been having the most vivid dreams. Like they almost seem prophetic. And I've been writing them down. And the way I do it is I like to write down, well, I kind of write down like it seems like almost the whole chart, but at the very least, the moon phase and where perhaps it's showing up in which house in my chart. And noticing like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna note that because I think that's important. Maybe I'll come back to it the following moon phase. But Pisces, right? Like Pisces is the dreamer, and it's also the dream meeting the dream and living the dream and like witnessing like, wow, I'm not just an observer of what's going on here, like I'm also the one living it. I'm also the one, I'm the actor on the stage as well as the one watching the other actors. And it can be so powerful to have that awareness. And it almost feels sometimes like when you get into this really pure place, you're like, am I new here? Like, did I just kind of walk in? Like, why does it feel like I've never been here before? What, and like looking at everything through new eyes. So that's also a potential with every planetary pair conjunction. It's like we can, if you want to do any sort of rituals this week with this new phase energy of Sun, Jupiter, and then Sun, Neptune, it's like, allow yourself to be reborn, like come into this now moment a new person. It's really a beautiful opportunity to bring immense healing, immense forgiveness. Like forgiveness is, I think, the big work. And it's also, I think, first and foremost, it's the forgiveness of ourselves. Forgiveness for things that we didn't know, right? How we don't know what we don't know. And of course we need to forgive ourselves for not knowing, right? And forgiving ourselves for perhaps sometimes, saying something in the wrong way because we didn't know. And perhaps forgiving ourselves for not fully seeing the light in ourselves or the light in somebody else, and then just moving on. And it's like, in this moment, I can make a new choice immediately. I can make a new choice in this moment to look people in the eyes and smile and see them. And I don't have to worry about the fact like, oh, I was a hermit for the past 2 years. And I was, it doesn't matter. Like we can just start over at any time. I went to a concert, or yeah, it was a concert on New Year's actually. So this is a couple months ago, but it was one of the first times that I had been around a lot of people. And it was so beautiful, Amanda. Like I just felt, I was like, everybody's just here dancing, humaning, like, and it was so beautiful. And it reminded me, I was like, at any moment, the tides can change if people's consciousness changes. And that's also the beauty of Pisces. Like at any moment, there could be a surprise. There could be the unexpected. There could be a miracle. There could be a breakthrough. And it could just be because people made a different choice. And it's like quantum, like split second change.
Nora, it happens in the ocean. There's sneaker waves that come. I mean, it could be like a placid lake and all of a sudden a 10-foot wave comes out of nowhere. And it seems like it came out of nowhere, but it really came from some source that you can't even see. So there's some source, there's something, something that was seeded earlier that comes to fruition seemingly out of nowhere. And that changes everything. Yeah. So exactly what you just said, it is absolutely possible, both in our consciousness and in the actual tides. And can we talk a little bit about the potential shadow here? Like where could we get hooked? And the only reason why I want to bring this up is because the awareness of where we can get hooked or where we could fall into the shadow element of any of these expressions, the awareness enables us a lot more choice when we find ourselves in those situations. It's like, oh, I remember this could be, one of the pitfalls of the current energy of the week. So what would you say for us to be on the lookout?
Absolutely. And you triggered so much in my mind with the sneaker wave. I was like, ooh, South Node Scorpio. There's going to be a few of those sneaker waves coming in. I kind of have a feeling like the whole Pluto and Scorpio generation actually is a bit of the sneaker wave itself, because like Scorpio remains hidden until the absolute last minute. It's not like bold coming out in front being like, here we are, we have an opinion about this.
How old are the Pluto and Scorpio people?
Everybody between 1984 and 1997 ish. There's some variance with the retrogrades on both sides of that, but
okay, 1984 to 1997. 97. All right, sneaker waves. We're
Yeah,
waiting for
I
you.
have a sneaking suspicion that we might see that with the South Node in Scorpio being exposed and being more or less awakened, like, or initiated into adulthood, because it's kind of like this crew that's in their, you know, early 30s, maybe coming up to around 40, that's like kind of been in this really interesting germinal state and witnessing a lot of the transitions, but is now realizing like we're the next round of adults. You know, we have agency, we can say something, we can do something. And I think there's a lot of this like coming out when you feel ready energy. And so that, again, that is a more positive way of looking at this. But in terms of shadow, I think we're actually going to see a lot of shadow exposed. And then where the Neptune and the Jupiter and the Pisces come into play, it's like the attachment to illusion. I think a lot of us have our attachments because of how we've grown up and what we maybe felt entitled to. And again, not from a place of judgment, but like the things that we took for granted, that were like, oh, that was just what life was for me. And I thought it would always be there. I thought it would always be like that. And so I'm going to do whatever I possibly can to keep things like that, even if it means relinquishing power. It's kind of an interestingly, potentially dangerous place to be in, right? Because it asks us to look at our values and our priorities, but those attachments, I think, are making themselves very known. And so where are we falling into illusion? Also, where are we numbing out because it's too much? Like, where are we numbing out because it's way too intense? And there's so many different ways to numb out. And I think the strategy around shifting how we numb out is manifold. For some, it might be like, oh, you replace something. Like if your way of numbing is through substance or food, or just simply consuming media, consuming what's on the screen in its many, many forms. It's like, what can I substitute? That can work for a lot of people. But I think there's also a lot of the mindset work behind it, because Pisces is a mutable sign, and the mutable energies have a lot to do with how we're communicating with ourselves, like our perceptions of reality and our beliefs and what we're constantly repeating to ourselves. So it kind of comes back to that same question, like, who do I have to become to believe that it would be in my best interest to do this? So getting kind of creative, like something for me that really helped me to shift a lot of my habits was this belief that I'm like, wow, there's a whole version of myself that is available, that I can step into when I'm not living in the realm of this distraction. And I had to believe that there was another higher version of me that wanted to be expressed. It asked me to come out of nihilism. I had to challenge myself, where I was like, there's a ceiling. This is all life is. I get kind of jaded. It's kind of like, I just know everything. That's a huge fallacy, right? Like that I already know what life is and there's nothing else beyond it, right? And it's like, actually, I mean, that's really sweet to think that way, but it's not true at all, right? And it's like believing and knowing that there's so much more, but we have to be able to have our frequency dialed into that. And our strategies for releasing the numbing agents, I think that's primary. And then also just leaning into like, where can we find our mentors? We're still working long term with the Venus star point in Capricorn. This is a 19-month cycle that began January 2022 and goes all the way until next year in 2023. So we're working with a really long-term period of grandmother wisdom, like remembering that we're not alone, remembering that there are people who have wisdom, who might know something that will help us. So it's like reaching out to the mentors, reaching out also for the community, and getting as best as we possibly can into the energy of hope. And it's really interesting, like I follow a lot of different threads, a lot of different rabbit holes, because I like to be informed and I like to know what's going on from all the different places. And it's like in some of the, you know, you could say like the truther communities, for example, who are like looking at all the weird stuff behind the scenes of like what's really going on. There's this dangerous thing called hopium. Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay, so there's a battle against hopium, which is like you can become so hopeful, like, and that it can almost make you unrealistic.
And then you
Right.
continue to get let down, disappointed and then you get really
Yeah.
jaded and yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a very, it's, I think it's a spiritual war that we're in.
Wow.
Right. And it's
Right.
like, there are important things to be hopeful for, but then also being aware of like, am I just attached to this, some of it could be savior mentality, like somebody
Exactly.
outside is going to come save us.
Right.
And
Some false hope.
maybe, like maybe there are the off-planet beings that are going to come do that. But maybe it's ourselves,
Right.
and so I think we all have belief systems that we require to live in what we're experiencing.
Yeah.
But then just realizing like some of those things are likely to creep up, and then we're going to have these moments of like, ooh, disillusionment, like this thing that I really believed in maybe is not real, and now what, like, what am I going to do when I confront that, when I look at that? And I think the ultimate strategy is mentorship, feeling what you're feeling, and finding the strategy of like, what can I positively focus on? And I don't mean like positive focus, like to pretend other things aren't happening, but like positive focus from the place of like, I believe in myself. I believe that I'm capable of making a new habit. I believe that I can every single day say yes to life. Every single day I can choose something that will empower me, that will empower the people around me. It really does come down to it's choice, and knowing also that you are supported. It's like the whole ask and you shall receive. Like, it is there. The support is there.
So rich, Nora. Holy macanoli. You talked about contagion and the different groups. And what's interesting is fear is really contagious, right? I mean, I think we absolutely have experienced that on a grand scale, and we continue to experience it, right? Fear is contagious. But the interesting thing is, so is hope. And I would say hope is even more contagious.
Mm-hmm.
And so being very mindful of the communities that you are surrounding yourself with, but there is that illusional false hope sort of thing, which is also something to be careful and aware of. So it's not black and white. It's not always obvious, but that's where discernment and things can come in, where I feel like discernment with Pisces energy is A, challenging, and B, essential. It's like, it's a skill that is really helpful with that real open, porous Piscean energy, right?
Absolutely. Like it's if we call in the strategy of the North Node in Taurus as it aligns with the Pisces energy, like they're naturally sextile. And so the opportunity is really to find simplicity. Like, we can be most discerning when we're clear in ourselves, when we're not incredibly distracted, when we're not overwhelmed and scattered and pulled in all the different directions. So it's like, maybe the strategy is, how can I simplify? How can I focus on, Pisces really likes 3, the number 3. How can I focus on 3 things?
Oh.
And that's it. Anything else, it's like, maybe just not right now, maybe in a couple months.
I'd love to invite all of you, if you're inspired, to put the 3 things you're going to focus on in the chat, and then just like put it down and let those be the 3 things that are going to anchor you. As you said, Nora, that word tether. What are the 3 things that are going to tether you as you go throughout this week? The other thing you brought up that I wanted to circle back to just for a moment is that what you found yourself when you were distracting yourself is that you had to believe that without the distraction, there was something more. Something more of you that would be unleashed or opened up. It reminds me again of my children. We've been having this discussion at the homeschool community about media and screen time and movies, and how their minds are being filled with all of this imagery that other people think are important, right? Like what we do when we're consuming media, it's somebody else's idea, it's somebody else's dream, it's somebody else's story, and we're consuming it, right? And what they've found is that children who don't get exposed to media are so much more creative. This one mom told a story about this one young man that she knows, who they did no media in their house, none. and he's now a screenwriter. And the people are always like, where do you get these ideas? He's so creative. He's coming up with new stories, but that's because he's not regurgitating the old ones. He's actually connected into the source of creative inspiration, and that is what's coming through him. So it brings me back to this distraction thing, to remember that when we're not distracted. I'm sorry, one more thing I've witnessed with my own children. They get to the point where they're bored and they want to be distracted. It's like, I want to watch a movie. I'm bored. And I say, no, when I say no, something creative always happens that they weren't even expecting from that place of boredom, or not knowing, or not having a plan, or not having anything to do. So back to your point, when we stop distracting, there is something else there. We just haven't allowed ourselves to experience it yet. So back to that idea of opening up to the possibilities of what that could be without thinking that we have to know. Just opening up to what it is, right?
Yeah. Have you read the book? I think it's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. It's all about the concept of the upper limit.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. The upper limit program, or the upper limit. Yes. I love it. Can you tell for people that don't know what it is?
Yeah. So to add to all of this, it's like, maybe when we're feeling that itch, right? The urge to do something because we have a feeling, and usually the feeling is boredom, or like there's something else that I want. Maybe maybe our upper limit are the tools that we go to whatever it is, satisfy that feeling. Like, maybe, okay, I'm having this urge, like there's something to be known right now. What if I didn't go to my phone? What else could be known? Because something still wants to be known, and maybe it just wants to come directly through me. And maybe I'm using my phone as a tool to create basically an upper limit because I'm just used to it. Like, upper limits are basically just ceilings that we put on our experience because that's what we know. It's familiarity. It's like what we'll do with money. It's like, oh, I have a cap. I'm only going to make this amount of money in my life. And I just keep creating the circumstances where that's all that's possible. Right. And so it's like kind of taking a zoomed out look. It's like, what are all the little micro habits that I have where I upper limit myself and create a ceiling on my experience? And just what would happen? What would happen if I just removed that? What would happen if I just noticed it and not judge it, and then just made a different choice? What else could happen? Like, I say the same thing to my daughter. She's like, I'm bored. And I'm like, good. That means it's time to get creative. It means, like, yes. I think we need to be bored. And I think we don't allow ourselves to be bored often enough as adults as well. Like, oh, this feeling of boredom. What does it mean about me? Right? Like,
exactly. Or looking at a day and not having a plan. It's like, there's that moment of anxiety, like, oh, what am I going to do? And then it's like, oh, whoa, what am I going to do? Yeah. What could happen today?
And that's the new moon energy. That's the new phase conjunction energy. It's like, there is no plan yet. Like, literally letting it be so open to see what wants to be seeded in this space, and following the little breadcrumbs, like following the yeses. And I just think it's a radically different way to live our lives. And thinking too about, the reemergence of the divine feminine and the healing of the sacred union. Like, we've been working a lot with the Venus-Mars conjunctions, with Pluto, like the whole way we do things, like being productive and hustling, and like this, the very masculine way of having to work and having to constantly produce something. It's like, what if I just allowed myself to feel when I'm ready? It will naturally come. Like, what would happen? What would it look like? How would what I create be different? How could it be actually something new and truly genius? And this actually reminds me of a couple tarot cards I pulled beforehand, because I wanted to just tune into the collective energy. And I wasn't sure if I was going to bring them up, but I feel like we have literally just verbalized the interpretation of the cards through our conversation. And so in the conscious realm, I pulled the King of Swords, which is very much around challenging our assumptions. Like, there's probably a lot more going on than we could possibly even know. And it's like, staying really open. So like, what else can be known? Other ways of knowing. And then Page of Cups, which is like, he's got like a fish in his cup. It's a surprise. There's a creative surprise that's available when we challenge our assumptions. So that's the energy.
Speaking of cups, our cuppeth overflow with you, my dear. This has been so full. I feel like any person listening could go back and take any 3-minute clip or 30-second clip, and there'd be something in there for you. So I'm just so grateful, Nura, that you're here, that you're part of our inner circle, that you're going to be a teacher with us this year. It's like, gosh, where's this woman been hiding my whole life? I'm so happy you're here. And I'm so happy
I
that
feel
you
the same.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So just to recap, and I want to just make sure, and it's perfect and it's enough, and we don't need to focus on more aspects, but is the Sun Jupiter conjunction, the Sun Neptune conjunction, and the quarter moon, the three things the three things that we can focus on astrologically to really be those tethers throughout this week.
I would say a yes, and
3D.
Just knowing that we are in the second Venus gate, clearing from the third eye. And I think that actually just supports everything that we've been talking about. It's clearing the vision, clearing the mind. Like some of the best things that we can do to have a really open, clear mind is nothing, right? Is getting into our meditation, like purging all of the things that we don't actually need to be thinking about so that we can hear our own thoughts, so that we can, imagine our own vision and things like that. So we're working with this actually for a month from February 26th through to March 28th. So that's a little bit bigger of a cycle, more than just the next week, but just knowing that that's going on, because I've had so many conversations with people who've had migraine headaches, like sinus issues, things like that, and myself included. And I was like, what is this? I'm like, oh yeah, Venus gate, like clearing the third eye. This is very connected with migraines, sinus things. So just to validate people's experience, if you are experiencing that, you're just clearing in the third eye, making space, I think, for this new vision that wants to be seeded with these massive conjunctions.
Wow. For people that are unfamiliar with the second gate of Venus and the things that you're saying, are there any resources, books, anything, any talks you've done or things that they could tune into to learn more?
I highly recommend anybody from the shamanic school of astrology, and Kaylin Castell is an amazing teacher.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Love her. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyone from the shamanic school of astrology that is talking about the Venus gates could be a good.
And these are things that I'll be sharing a little bit more about too when I do the masterclass in Leo season, because I'm personally going very much through a Venus initiation this year.
Brilliant. Okay. I think many people are, right? All right. So if we are to summarize some of the main points, which there are a lot of, this is an expansion of our comfort zone and reaching those edges of what feels scary and unknown, but allowing yourself to breathe in those places, not feel like you have to do anything about it, but just allow yourself to be there before you reach for the thing that distracts you and keeps you exactly where you've been. Mm-hmm. This is a time to dissolve everything that is fantasy or illusion. So there's going to be this energy of, yes, expanding and dreaming, and also weeding what is not really rooted in reality. I want to say reality with a capital R, like the real reality, not the reality that we think is reality, but that eternal reality, right? Mm-hmm. You said to approach this week with a playful energy. So even as things feel potentially heavy, confusing, unsure, that if you can find a way to play with that energy, that there will be a lot more available to you. You were learning how to surf. I would say check out some surfers on YouTube or something. Like just watch what it looks like to surf and feel. It's when you talked about having a strategy, it's like when the surfer looks at the surf report, decides which board to bring for the day, decides which spot to surf at. So that's the strategy, right? Mm-hmm. But then once they're out on the ocean, it is so much about feeling where to position the board, feeling when it's the time to go and when it's the time to pass. It's so intuitive. So there's both the strategy and the very intuitive flowing with the energies as they arise.
Absolutely. And this actually reminds me of a scene in Forgetting Sarah Marshall where Paul Rudd is learning how to surf. Have you seen it? Oh my gosh.
I have, but I forget.
Oh my God, it's so funny. So he's learning how to surf, and like the instructor's like, okay, do nothing. Do nothing. Oh no, you're doing too much. But wait, you got to do something. And he's like, okay, like, how do I get up? You know, like, how do I do this? Everybody needs to find that clip and just laugh, because that's another way that we can enter this place, because we're all kind of in that, like, okay, like, but what do I do?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. All right. So look up Forgetting Sarah Marshall and maybe we could find it for you. That'd be fun to
Yeah,
put.
that would be good. I might be getting the actors' names wrong, but there's the surfing scene in Forgetting Sarah
Yes.
Marshall. That's the one.
Awesome. All right. There's no wrong thing to do here. There's no wrong way to approach the emotions and the feelings as they're coming up. Who do I have to become? You emphasize trust and faith a lot. So when we're in those places where something's emerging from a dark place that is unknown, we have to have trust and faith that there is something there for us, and it's worth waiting for. It's worth making space for, even though we might not know what it is. Okay. What can I do right now? What can I do right now? Not projecting out, just what is in my court right now to do and what isn't, and just focusing on that. I'm going to know something in a week that I don't know right now. That's fun and full of possibility. Use the gift and strategy of words. So using the words very mindfully and carefully and consciously to actually, I like how you use the word create spells, or we're spelling with the words, right? Visions, very powerful dream times. We have our sneaker waves of our 1984 to 1997 friends who are like, there's things brewing under the surface and they might be ready to actually bring some of those things out soon. And find mentors, community, seek out grandmother wisdom, get into the energy of hope. Every single day, say yes to life. How can I simplify? 3 things, focus on 3 things. And we are embarking on a radically different way to live our lives. You
are gifted. I feel like you put it all together in such a concise way. It's wonderful.
You said it. I just wrote down the things that just popped out to me. It was like, ooh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Nura, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. I can't wait to have you back. We're doing we're still in the rotating astrologers every week, which we're going to keep doing that for the weekly weather. And there's going to be a few astrologers that we cycle more regularly, and then leave space for new voices to come in as well. So please let us know how you enjoyed this episode. And Nura, just thank you. Thank you for showing up and being such a beautiful expression of possibility, and for being vulnerable with the aspects of your journey where you've been stuck and how you've broken through some of those areas, and how you're like us, you're open to new possibilities and radically new ways of living life. I can really feel that in you, and it's really inspiring. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's such an honor to share.
Yes. All right. And for any of you who did not yet register for Christopher Renstrom's Cosmic Calendar, we did start class, but it's not too late to join. So if you are still interested in hopping into that class, you'll have access to the first module, which was released on last Thursday, and you'll be invited to the live Q&A, which is happening this week on Wednesday. And you can just jump right into that stream. And if you want to join us, it's astrologyhub.com/cosmic calendar. The feedback from the community is overwhelmingly, profusely just grateful and appreciative. And he is so wonderful and such a wonderful teacher. So it'd be awesome to have you in that class. Again, it's astrologyhub.com/cosmic calendar. Otherwise, we will see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. And thank you, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode.